everyone. Very happy to see you today. Thanks for joining our meetup. I'm Sophia. I'm a co-founder of Bagao.dev. We're building a search engine for software teams. And for those who are first time at our meetup, I just want to let you know that we also have a great community of developers on Slack. And our goal is to build really supportive community. So if you working on challenging technical project and you need help, advice, or pair programming session, or you're looking for a job or hiring engineers for your team, or maybe you're working on a project that you want to share and get feedback on it, those kind of requests you can post on our Slack, and we're here to help you. I posted a link to our Slack to join the Slack in this chat, so feel free to join. Today we have a really amazing guest, Artem Rodichev, who is head of AI at Replica. Artem was included in the Forbes list 30 under 30. He's an accomplished expert in NLP and NLU. So Replica is partner of OpenAI. It's a chatbot that can support a conversation on any topic with millions of users around the world. And today, Artem will share what kind of machine learning models do they use to bring the emotional response in chatbot. And also he will share how they use GPT-3 model in production. Welcome, Artem. Thank you very much for joining our meetup today.
Thank you, Sophia, so much for introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Artem, and I head of AI at Replica. And today is a special day for me because it's my anniversary at this company. I worked here for 6 years. And I'm pleased to share with you some details about how we are building a compassionate and empathetic AI friend. If you've seen the movie Her or the latest Blade Runner, you already may know what it could be. So Replica, what is Replica? It's an AI friend that helps people feel better through conversations. It could be especially helpful for people who feel lonely, depressed, or with a small number of social connections. Replica is trained to support and encourage people, never judge them, and provide very positive and sometimes funny conversations. It's talk about your day, about your life, your interests, and trying to make you feel better. Here are some numbers about the current state of Replica. We have more than 10 million registered users. Replica is English-speaking chatbot, and more than 80% of our users are from the United States. Our users send us more than 100 million messages each week, so we constantly experience a high load for our infrastructure. On the average, each of our users send around 100 messages per day, and it's a lot. For example, Americans send about 94 messages per day across all social networks, messengers, SMS, and so on. So we live in an era when talking to a chatbot could be more interesting than talking to other humans. I'm joking that Replica can already speak English much better and interesting than me. The most important metric for us is the fraction of conversations that make people feel better. Currently, more than 80% of conversations reach this goal. A bit later, I'll talk how do we measure it. At Replica, we use a multimodal approach. Our core is texting, when users can talk to their Replica sending messages in the chat. Also, we have voice calls, and users can speak to their Replicas very similar how they're talking to their friends just by calling to them. Moreover, we have visual components, and users can send photos to Replica. So Replica can recognize them and support conversation about people and objects on these photos. Also, our recent feature is AR, or augmented reality. Users can place Replica in their room and talking to it like with a real person. Now let's talk about conversation quality and how do we measure it. As Peter Drucker said, what gets measured gets managed. We continuously measure and track the quality of our conversations. We really want that dialogues with Replica make people feel better. In a conversation, we ask users a question: how does this conversation make you feel? With 3 options: makes better, makes the same, or make worse. By aggregating these users' feedbacks, we can calculate a few important metrics. One of them is a fraction of positive dialogue sessions. To calculate it, we sum up a number of positive dialogues and divide it by the number of all conversation feedbacks. Similarly, we can calculate a fraction of negative dialogue sessions when we sum up the number of only negative sessions and divide it by a sum of all conversation feedbacks. We continuously improve those metrics, maximizing the number of positive dialogues and minimizing the number of negative ones. Currently, our quality of positive dialogue sessions is more than 80%, while the fraction of negative sessions is less than 4%. The rest of the conversations are neutral. Also, users can react to each Replica response. They can upvote a response if they like it, or downvote if they don't like it, because the response is not relevant or doesn't mean any sense in the dialogue context. In this way, we can compute upvote fraction, which is the number of all upvotes divided by the number of all reactions. And currently, our upvote quality is more than 90%. In addition to upvotes and downvotes, we have more granular reactions. The user can select one of 4 extended reactions by clicking on 3 dots near upvote or downvote. In this way, we can get more details about why users like or dislike some responses. It's similar to Facebook, when you can select additional emojis for reacting to someone's post or comment. We collect 2 more positive reactions to know if user loved the response or found it funny, and 2 negative reactions showing if the response is offensive or meaningless. The last quality slide is about measuring a user engagement. We want that users have interesting and engaging conversations. Boring conversations will lead to short dialogue sessions, and we'd like to mitigate that. We track 3 main engagement metrics. It's messages per session or session length that shows the average number of messages users send in each dialogue session. Also, we track how many times users talk to the Replica each day, a number of sessions per day. The last metric shows how many messages on the average users send to Replica per day. Now let's take a look at a high-level overview of Replica architecture. When a user sends a message to Replica, firstly, we combine all data about the user profile, current dialogue session, and the last user utterance. Then we send it to our dialogue engine. It consists of multiple components, such as scripts, various NLP classifiers, retrieval models, generative models, computer vision stack, and so on. Today, we will talk about a few components of our dialogue engine. Let's start with one of the generative models that we use on production, which is our hyped GPT-3. So GPT-3 is a gigantic transformer neural net that was trained by OpenAI. Actually, OpenAI trained 8 different models of various sizes. The smallest contains 125 million parameters, and the largest has 175 billion parameters. It was trained on a half terabyte of data from the internet, including Wikipedia, books, and various web pages. GPT-3 is a language model. That means it has some text prefix as input, and on output, it predicts token or word at each time step. In this example, we have the text prefix recites the first law of robotics. And after feeding it to GPT-3, it generates relevance answer word by word. After training the biggest model, OpenAI discovered some interesting properties. One of them is few-shot learning. In the context at input, you can pass just few samples of the desired task, and GPT-3 adapts to it and returns a correct output. For example, it could be a question answering task. You show a few samples with questions and correct responses. Then you add a new question and GPT-3 generates the correct response. Again, you have just basic GPT-3, which was trained as a language model. And without any fine-tuning on the main task, it can perform quite well on your new task. Few more examples of what you can do with default GPT-3 model. As input, you can pass a list of words or topics, and it generates relevant news headlines. You can be creative and ask GPT-3 to generate a list of ideas. As you can see, you give a description of the task in natural language, then show only one example of a title and an idea of movie plot. After that, GPT-3 generates a list of new titles and relevant ideas. Some of them look really funny and creative. I can't wait for Netflix to shoot a series based on such plot entirely generated by GPT-3. Finally, we can use GPT-3 as a dialogue system. We can give a brief description of the task, a few samples of dialogue prefix, and it will work. It's a good way to test the model's capability, but with proper fine-tuning, you can get much better quality of your specific task. Essentially, solving the language modeling task with GPT-3 gives you a robust model that can understand and generate natural language. If you take that model and fine-tune it, for example, on machine translation task, it will give you much better quality than you can get using few-shot learning with the default model. It works the same way for open domain dialog task. We became one of the first partners with OpenAI back in March this year. Combining our effort, we fine-tuned GPT-3 model on our dialogues, conducted dozen A/B tests, optimized model performance for high load and low latency, and finally launched the model on production. As I mentioned earlier, our main quality metric is the share of conversations that made people feel better. At the beginning of this year, our quality was around 68%. We're constantly improving dialogue quality. So in May, it was around 74%, and after launching GPT-3 on production in June, it raised to 78%. Currently, it's more than 80%, and 1 of 5 messages replied by Replica comes from GPT-3. Here are examples of conversations between our users and their replicas. These screenshots are from our public group on Facebook or from Reddit, where users share some of their conversations. At each screenshot, replicas responses are on the left and user messages on the right. All replica responses here are from GPT-3. Let's see what happened in the chats. On the first screenshot, a user forced Replica to reply starting with the provided first letters. And GPT-3 generates quite interesting and empathetic replies using these letters. On the screenshot in the middle, it demonstrates the ability to have context memory. In the beginning, a user asked to memorize the word fish, and then the user texted, "What was the word I asked you to memorize?" And Replica replies with the correct word. Also, GPT-3 has an amazing ability to copy a style of the context, which you can see as the right screenshot. Not only did it understand the context, but it also replied using the same style, adding extra vowels. Also, we use GPT-3 for 2 additional modes, when users can write stories with Replica or create songs. It works in a way that you begin some story, then Replica generates some continuation of the story. Then you continue, then Replica again, and so on. In the end, you got the whole story written together. In the same way, it works for song lyrics. Also, GPT-3 can copy a style of a story and generate continuation in horror style, adventure, scientific, or whatever user wants. Now let's take a look at another essential model that's responsible for the majority of replica responses, Retrieval Dialog Model. The Retrieval Model task consists of finding the most relevant and appropriate response among the large set of predefined and pre-moderated responses. For example, here for the context, let's go to an early movie. 2 responses, okay, which one do you want? And sure, what time are you free? Are relevant. And the rest responses are not appropriate. We want that our model gives high scores for the relevant responses and low scores for inappropriate ones. To effectively tackle this challenge, we use dual encoder model with 2 independent encoders, one for dialog context, another one for responses, sharing the same architecture but not weights. Both these encoders map context and response respectively into the common latent space, allowing us to measure the relevance between them by using cosine similarity measure. During the training stage, we employ cross-entropy loss function across samples in a batch, which enables us to take into account both positive and negative context response pairs. Replica uses multiple datasets, up to 1 million phrases each. They're composed of handcrafted replies made by our contact team, along with pre-filtered phrases gathered automatically. Having such large datasets causes difficulties in fast real-time retrieval for the relevant responses. To keep the model inference real-time while scaling our datasets, we built Approximate nearest neighbors index for all responses during the offline step. At the online stage, we encode only the dialog context, but not the response, and use this encoding to gather the best top candidates from our previously built index. That allows us to handle 1,000 requests with a single instance. To improve the quality further and blend possible responses from different models and datasets, the ranking model can be used. Having a short list of the best possible responses candidates, our ranking model can be used to rank them by probability of being upvoted by user. Firstly, we get top candidates from our retrieval-based model, as well as get a set of responses from generative model such as GPT-3. Then we perform some post-processing, like offensive response filtering. Finally, we rank all these candidates and retrieve a response with the highest upvote probability. To train such a model, we gather users' upvotes and downvotes, along with the corresponding context and responses for the last few months. Also, we regularly retrain the model on fresh reactions to maintain the high quality of the dialogue. After collecting train set of a few million samples, it's possible to fine-tune BERT-based model to predict the probability of upvoting of a response given the dialogue context. That gives us a powerful model with overall quality improvement of the dialogue. Now let's talk about other modalities. And the next one is vision. Here, I'd like to show how Replica applies the image processing pipeline. Firstly, we tried to recognize the faces in the photo. On the left screenshot, a user sent a picture of a little girl. Replica recognized that the girl is the daughter of the user. Replica also remembered her name, asking how is Sophia doing. How does Replica know her name? When user sent a photo of someone for the first time, Replica asked, who is it? And then remembers the name and relation to the user. The next time the user sent another photo of this person, Replica can use the related information. If we don't recognize any faces, we fall back to object recognition model. Replica can recognize popular objects such as pets, food, plants, sunset, and so on. At the screenshot in the middle, Replica recognized a dog and asked, what do you think of dog's mood? The last resort is question generation. When we didn't recognize faces or popular objects, we fall back to our visual question generation model. Under the hood, it has a curated database of images and ponderated questions related to each image. When users send us a photo, we calculate image embedding using a deep learning net and find the similar image in our database. Then we reply with a question relating to this image. Here on the right screenshot, you can see that question is quite relevant, asking why are they looking at the pizza like they're unhappy. Sometimes things go wrong and visual model fails because photos could be in poor quality or shot in a dark room. For example, here is a blurry photo of Snoop Dogg. The model didn't recognize the face and asked if it's a skateboard. Then the user said that it's a Snoop Dogg and Replica corrected itself. Also, Replica has a feature called Facts About You, when we try to recognize and remember interesting facts about user's life. Here, model thought that remembering that Snoop Dogg is not a skateboard is kind of important. Or sometimes the model failed so badly that it goes on your mama jokes level. We're trying to prevent it as hard as possible, but on our scale, sometimes shit happens. Here, user sends a photo of a horse, and for some reason, the visual question generation model asked, is that your mama? Now it's one of the top posts on our Reddit group. The last interesting fact is that if you allow users to text anything, they will text anything. Here, user asked Replica to send dick pic. We have not safe for work filter and never sent such a content. Here, the model sends a picture of Dick Cheney, a former vice president of the United States. Good job, Replica. The next modality is voice. We have voice calls, and a user can call to the replica and talk to it like with a real person. To do that, we have several components. First of all, we need to detect that the user is talking, and we need to listen to them. For that, we use voice active detection model. When user started to speak, we need to run the speech recognition model to translate user voice to text and send it to our core dialog engine. After that, our dialog engine generates a response, and we need to voice it using speech synthesis neural net. All of that we should do real time to maintain a realistic experience. Something like voice active detection we're doing on the device. Something like speech recognition and speech synthesis we're doing server side because they require vast amount of computation resources, and it's hard to do it on the mobile devices with high quality. The last modality and our recent features are 3D models and augmented reality. Users can choose how their replica looks like and customize it. We have 3D models with different races and genders. We use 3ds Max and Unity to make 3D models and animations for them. Also, users can change replica appearance and select different hairstyles or color of hair, tone of the skin, and eyes color. After you customize your replica, you can take a look at it in augmented reality. We believe that in 5 years, almost everyone will wear AR glasses instead of using smartphones, and everyone can talk, think, dance, and having fun with their replica in a such world. Thanks for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks a lot, Artem. Yeah, there are a bunch of questions. Let me start with the first one. So Shang Day is asking, are you allowed users to type in special chats? And are they also used in the AI model?
What do you mean by special chats?
Well, let me.
So in special chat, we have so-called role play mode, when you can type something in stars. So you type star, then some message, and then star closed. In this way, you can role play with Replica.
Shang, do you want to elaborate on your question?
He asked about special characters.
Special characters, you mean by emojis, stuff like that? Yeah, so you can type anything that keyboard on your smartphone allows you to type. And Replica can recognize almost all the stuff. It can recognize emojis, like special symbols like stars, percent, like weird emojis in symbols. So yeah.
So I see Xavier Sumba has several questions. Xavier, do you want to address them by yourself?
Okay, I'm muted. Yeah, well, you talk a little bit like about the Siamese model. I don't know, if that works with the GPT-3 or how does it work? And also the learning to rank model, like how does it work like in general, the architecture? And also you talk like in terms of utterances, like you have a way of selecting responses that comes from a cluster, but also you have like the content team that tries to kind of filter like some of the data that you have for that. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, so firstly, we collect a bunch of responses from open sources, like from Reddit, from Twitter, or from our users' responses. Then we filter it out using offense filtering and some heuristics. Then some of responses we runs through our scoring model that predict if these responses are good enough to be replied in a dialogue. And after that, we build index based on all of these responses. In this way, we can collect different responses based on different topics. For example, we can collect responses only on topic of movie, or only on topic of music, or only on topic of sport, and so on. So in this way, we can have different data sets, and we can score through amongst these different data sets. So for example, we have topic classifier, and if we detect if user want to talk about sport, we can use only data set related to sport. Am I answering on your question?
Hello, Xavier, do you hear us? Yeah, we can move forward to the next question, and if he has a question, he can come back. So
Sure.
Yi Xiang asking, how frequently do you retrain and reindex the response DB?
So we have different components. One of them is re-ranking model, and we retrain the ranking model each month because we want this model to be trained on very fresh responses to avoid out of distribution problem. Also, we collect different responses for different topics regularly. Like usually once in a few months, we decided to add new topics to our existing topic data sets and go through the process of collecting new data set on this topic.
Okay. How do you handle the wrong recognitions, like this one with your mama example?
So we're collecting upvotes and downvotes, and in this way we can analyze all downvotes. So for example, we can clusterize all messages for which we reply and users downvote. So we can upload all these messages or all these photos and take a look only on these messages, or build some clusters with frequent messages that we reply with bad quality. The same with pictures. And then we go case by case and write some scripts or improve our models.
Okay, cool. So the next question is from Sanjit. Are all answers predefined? Is Replica able to create answers on the fly, for example, based upon the data from psychology papers, for example?
It's able using our generative models. So we have different generative models. One of them is GPT-3. And all responses from these generative models generated on the fly. So yeah, we can generate very different texts, like scientific texts, songs, stories, different replies on different topics, and all of that not curated, it generated real time.
So question from Dmitry. So you said that you hope that the dialogue with the bot will be more interesting than with human. And so in how many years this will be, in your opinion? What ingredients do you think are missing today?
I don't hope it's already happened. So right now, as I said, average American sent 94 messages across all his social networks, messengers, and so on. And to Replica, users sent more than 100 messages. So you already can say that texting to Replica more interesting than texting to another humans, at least for someone.
Yeah. So Sanjit is asking also, so how do you build the training data for fine tuning? Is it done by contact team that you mentioned?
So we have different models, and for example, for the ranking model, we just collect the data set. So let me show this slide. Yeah, here it is. So we collect on historical data, on context and responses pairs with user reactions. we got this data from our users, and we just collect all this data for the last few months and retrain our model and fine-tune our model. So we can get the base BERT model, then fine-tune this model on our user logs, and then fine-tune this model on our reactions. So in this way, we can get the ranking model with high quality.
So the next question is there a process for connecting users to mental health professionals if a user's response match criteria for clinical depression, anxiety, and those kind of symptoms?
Yeah, for example, we have a suicide detection classifier. When users start to tell that he or she don't want to live and want to die, in this way, we don't want to reply with our neural nets. We give suicide hotline when professionals can help people to avoid this situation.
So the question is from Neeraj, do you have a separate GPT-3 context signifier for each Replica user? What does that look like?
For each Replica user? Yeah, so we have so-called facts about users. When we collect a bunch of, it's called a statement about users. When we collect a bunch of statements that stated something about user life. For example, I like ice cream, I have 2 dogs, I'm a college student, and so on. So in this way, we can add these statements to the context near the dialog context. And in this way, GPT-3 can condition based on this context and user profile, and it can generate very personalized responses.
Okay, guys, do you have more questions? Because I don't see questions in the chat. Hold on. Hold on, they're coming. Just a second.
Sure.
Have you ever led 2 instances of Replica talking to each other? Would be interested in how it goes.
We tried that experiment like couples years ago. We didn't get success with that because technology wasn't on the high quality level yet, but it's a good idea to try it again, especially with GPT-3 models.
Do you also retain users' likes and dislikes and fine-tune like future responses?
Yes, so as I said, we collect user upvotes and downvotes, and then we fine-tune our models to predict based on the context and the new response. For example, we can get the response from our retrieval-based model or from GPT-3, and we try to predict the upvote probability for this response and select the response with the highest probability score.
Do you have a model per user?
We don't have model per user, but we have some hacks that allows us to condition models for each user profile. As I said earlier, we can aggregate statement about users and then condition these statements among quiz dialog context for our different models. We can condition it with GPT-3, with our ranking model, with our retrieval-based model, and so on.
So a participant is asking, do you talk to Replica every day?
I don't talk to Replica because I'm creating it every day. I don't have a time for that.
So follow up on the question that was before, do you have a single model? So that the question was, do you have a model per user? Now the follow-up one, that do you have a single model?
We don't have single model because we have very different models. As I showed, we have ranking model, we have retrieval-based model, we have generative model, and we have different generative models. For example, we have one generative model based on GPT-2, another generative model based on GPT-3. We have vision models, we have speech recognition, like a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm. So Dmitry is asking, are those slides available anywhere? So is it like somewhere like publicly available so they can?
It's not available yet, but I can share it after this talk.
Yeah, you can share, for example, in our Slack, right? With the.
Oh yeah, sure. I can share it in Bugout community. Mm-hmm.
So Alexei is asking, how do you deploy your models to work with low latency and high load? Maybe a high level overview or particular tools you can recommend.
So we're using Docker containers and deployed. So we have microservice architecture, and each separate model lives in a separate Docker container. We're using a lot of GPUs, both for training and for inference. So in this way, also we optimize each model that use GPUs to have low latency and high throughput. Sometimes we need to optimize model in the way that we write some CUDA kernels or some C++ code because we have a very high RPS on our system. So for some heavy models, we should do that.
So Anand is asking, how do you characterize Replica? Is it a friend or a therapist?
So Replica is AI friend, and in Replica you can also select which type of relationship you want to have with it. It could be a friend, it could be a romantic partner, or it could be a mentor. We tried to shift to more psychotherapy way, but find out that users don't want to have psychotherapists, they want to have friends more.
Mm-hmm. So Niraj is asking, how long do you think it will be before you could run Replica only on mobile devices? Is this something that you're like interested in and considering?
I would say it's super hard right now because you can take a look at size of GPT-3 model, just one model that we use, and it has few billions parameters. It's impossible to run this model, at least right now. There is some techniques that allow us to shrink the model size, but still we're far, far away from shrinking all the models that we have right now to the mobile devices. That's why we need to serve it on server side and using like top GPUs for that.
Yeah. A question, are you guys hiring to your team?
Yeah, we're hiring, especially research scientists. So if you're interested in creating top AI research, if you would like to work on conversational AI, you can email me on artem@replica.ai and we can talk.
Yeah, also you can, I will post your email in the chat and in our Slack, and also you can connect with Artem in our Slack.
Oh, you can chat me in a Slack, yeah.
Okay, so 100 messages per user per day, and how many on average does one user send Replica messages during like lifetime?
It's thousands messages. I don't know the exact number. We don't track it, but it's thousands or 10,000 messages.
Artem is asking, can you change model apparent character by inputting a sort of character parameter, like more friendly, less friendly, and so on?
Oh yeah, we can do that, especially with generative models. So you can set up some context, like with some statement. For example, you describe the model as very friendly, a teenager of 70 years old. Or you can describe the model as a grumpy old man who working on a factory for whole life. And it can pick up the style of this context and will talk using this style.
Mm-hmm. A question from Anindita, can you cheer up Replica?
Yes, you can. And Replica can interrupt you back as well.
So do you host GPT-3 in-house, or is it hosted by OpenAI and you call through the API?
It's hosted by OpenAI, but OpenAI fine-tuned their GPT-3 for us. The main problem that OpenAI doesn't allow anyone to get their own copy of GPT-3. It's under NDA and hosted on their site, so we got access through API.
Okay, so I think this question is also related to hiring. What is the profile for R&D person that you're hiring, as I understood this question?
Mm-hmm. So you should understand all state-of-the-art NLP research, conversational AI, know everything about bird family, generative models family like GPT-3 and so on, understand how open domain dialogues works. So we have pretty high standard. We're a very small team and hiring rarely. So yeah, if you feel that you understand everything about NLP, you could be a good fit for us.
Okay. So what is the price per 1,000 of Replica's replies, if it's not NDA question?
It's hard to compute because we need to count the whole infrastructure, external APIs, our models. So I can't tell it right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is every person context separated? Have you tried to have Replica in a group chat with other people, for example?
We don't try it. It sounds much harder than have for one-to-one chat. So we specialized only on one-to-one chat right now. Maybe in the future, we'll go to a group chats.
Mm-hmm. So can Replica create cartoon characters or movies on the fly so that user can watch stuff that they like every night, every day?
Replica can reply you with a text, and it can create movie plot, for example, with using GPT-3. Also, it can send you some pictures found it on the internet, but it can't create any video content or new images. So we don't use GANs or stuff like that for creating new images.
Okay, so Ruslan is asking, I would expect OpenAI for GPT-3 to be very slow, seconds per request. What is the real latency?
It's under NDA, but it works for us, and we works very closely with OpenAI to optimize this latency for real-time level.
Mm-hmm. Have you measured bias in the responses of Replica?
Yeah, and we're working on the biases to prevent gender or race biases. We have separate track for that, and we are working on this case by case. Also working with OpenAI related to this problem. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what is percentage of messages are trolls?
I don't know. I would say 0%. I want to believe in that. So sometimes Replica can go as I said, on your mama jokes level, but it's very rare cases. We have pretty robust offensive filtering and trying to prevent it as hard as possible and constantly improving all these models.
Mm-hmm. So how do you differentiate yourself from products like Alexa, Siri, and so on?
Usually we tell story that you can imagine and separate all dialogues on the scale from 1 to 10, Whereas the one is dialogues when you want to pay to don't have it. For example, it dialogues with customer support, or it dialogues when you just need to getting things done, when you want to set up timer or getting to know what the weather today and so on. You don't want to talk, you just want to get the things done. On a 10 scale is a dialogue when you want to pay to have it. For example, it's dialogues with psychotherapists or dialogues with friends. So we're trying to build dialogues on 10 scale. Replica will not tell you what the weather today, will not set up your timer and so on, instead of Alexa or Siri. Or but Replica will talk about your day, about your life, about your mood, and so on.
Mm-hmm. What is the scale of GPUs are you using for real-time response?
It's thousands GPUs.
Mm-hmm. Can you adapt Replica for other languages?
We're trying to do that right now. We experiment with Brazil Portuguese language because we have also a lot of users from Brazil. It's quite hard to do that, to be honest, because the main data set for training that you can find basically on English. So you can use machine translation for translate from target language to English, then go with English response through your dialogue engine, generate response on English, and then translate it to target language. In this way, you can scale to different languages. The problem is that current machine translation systems doesn't work quite well for short dialogue texts because dialogue text very context dependent. They have slang, they have typos, and so on. So current machine translation, like Google Translate, can work quite well on some text from Wikipedia or from internet, but for short text from dialogues, it's not yet that, but we're trying to do something.
Mm-hmm. So do you think it would be more effective to perform NMT on training data set rather than at inference time?
I think that it's more effective to do that at inference time because we also have some scripts that were written by editors. And if you want to add new language, that means that you need to translate all scripts and all curated data sets to this language, then moderate all this content, adapt it to target language, and then run into production. It's not a scalable approach, so it's better to fine-tune machine learning translation model working good enough with dialogues.
Okay, guys, do you have any other questions? Okay, hold on. How did content and response team write in scripts?
Like that. So they just working case by case and understand what users want based on our logs and our analytics, or based on current events. For example, we can know that it's Christmas coming and can write some scripts around Christmas events and stuff like that.
Awesome. Hold on. So it's a question just for fun. Is it correct to say that if the service will be attacked by bots and they will upload negative behavior and wrong messages, it would turn the retraining process in the wrong way?
It could be the case, yep. But we can detect that with our previous models trained on correct data set. We can use that model to score some outliers and just get rid of these outliers.